Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Sarita. I have a lone candle today from Bath & Body Works, and it is from the Bridgerton collection. This is Bridgerton Study, and it's got this like tapestry-like wallpaper all around it, which is really appropriate, especially for a Bridgerton study or any kind of very like old-fashioned, old money kind of room. And I do have to say, while I thought that the packaging was like, especially that diamond of the season for sure. But while I thought it was okay, and I do think that this gold thing looks a little on the cheap side, it really looked very nice being burned. So when it was burned, like the various stripes were kind of a little bit translucent, and the light filtered through really nicely. And that goes for the Charlotte's Tea one that I burned, but this one as well. And it's kind of a very nice, like dusty blurple. I think maybe that's what that is, or a periwinkle something. Yeah, it was really very pretty. So Bridgerton Study, this one is a little bit elevated in price. It's $29.95. A candle like this would generally be $26.95. So you're definitely paying $3, from what we can tell, just for the collaboration with Netflix. Because the lid isn't fancy enough, frankly, to justify the $3 additional. The notes on this one are smooth amber, oak wood, dried orchids. This candle is a yikes. I really hated this candle, and it was a big surprise to me because I thought I was gonna like it. It seems in my wheelhouse in a lot of ways. This is a very dark, musky, spicy, like one of those kind of like tobacco adjacent, incense adjacent kind of fragrances. Similar to like midnight cocktails, for instance. I can't say that I always love men's colognes, but if they're done in an intriguing kind of way, and there's a heavy amount of other elements in it, and it's a fairly dynamic fragrance, I can get behind it. It definitely kind of comes across as a men's cologne, but like I said, kind of in that midnight cocktails vibe. There isn't a boozy note. If there was a boozy note, I think it would be very strongly in the midnight cocktail realm. It would be very similar, and I think they could have probably done a boozy note, because it does seem as though in those period dramas, they always have like the decanter and, sherry and port and whatnot. So actually, I think it would have been a nice tie-in in a lot of ways. It would be like an after dinner aperitif, or, when they, in the like, in the 19th century, when they would be like, let's take a turn about the room. Let's go in. After dinner, they would like go into the library, right? That said, I think this might have been more successfully marketed as just a straight up men's cologne fragrance, and just kind of marketed it as like a gentleman's something or other, right? Because I'll let you know something which is really very embarrassing. I actually have watched the first season of Bridgerton. I was off the bus after the first season. Actually, I was off the bus after like the first or second episode, so I can't say that I watched the rest of the season in a very dedicated fashion. It was like one of those background TV while I'm like cleaning the house kind of things. I mean, I could tell very early on, it's kind of like Emily in Paris, where it was like, this is so cringe, and I don't like the kind of person that I am that I'm watching this show, if that makes sense. Jane Austen, this is not. But at any rate, one of the biggest draws, at least of that season from Bridgerton, was a couple really like improbably good looking male actors who often had reasons to remove their clothing for all kinds of spurious reasons. I mean, they're basically just kind of soap operas, teenage soap operas with like some 19th century motifs and like a milieu. Like everybody puts on the costume, right? Anyway, close parentheses. I would think about actually just marketing it straight up as like your men's cologne. This is your 19th century gentleman's fragrance, you know, and then you could have like, you know, a woman's fragrance, Queen Charlotte's fragrance, whatever else it is. Because straight up, this is a men's cologne. And unfortunately, which is why I hated it, I liked it upon smelling it. I thought this one and the Queen Charlotte's tea were the most interesting and original, but also the most niche in the entire collection. So I wasn't sure with that tea conceptual how many people were going to get behind it. I think actually a lot of people did, so that's fantastic. This one is just like a very, like I said, midnight cocktails, masculine cologne kind of crowd. And I'm just not sure how many people who watch Bridgerton are also in that crowd, if that makes sense. And I don't know if there were men that bought this. But at any rate, I kind of liked it because I lean masculine. And then I got it home and I burned it and I was like, what? This is disgusting. So I'll tell you what happens. This is actually, it seems, I mean, it's not a particularly original fragrance, which is why I keep mentioning midnight cocktails. We've had versions of this fragrance from Bath & Body Works. Is it the most generic or phoned in men's cologne? No. Although men's colognes have now gotten so bougie and so hipster and like whatever else that actually this might be fairly standard now. The way that men's colognes and body care and shaving products now are, even like, you know, over the counter at CVS. So it may actually be fairly standard and generic. But it's not the worst that I've smelled. You know, it's not like a mahogany teakwood or something like that, or even ocean. It's a little bit better than that because of the spiciness of it, because of that like deep, leathery, tobacco adjacent kind of note. It's not bad, but have I smelled more dynamic and intriguing things from Bath & Body Works in this genre? Yes. Would I prefer midnight cocktails to this? Yes. And that's before I even started to burn it. But once I burned it, I mean, it was like a precipitous drop in terms of my appreciation of this candle. So what happened is that upon it being burned, the fragrance doesn't hold together. So as with a men's cologne like this, what you have is you have your bright, like bergamot kind of notes on top. And then, and sometimes a lighter amber, amber bergamot kind of in there. Whereas amber can hit actually in every single one of their, it can hit deep, it can hit mid, it can hit high, yeah? Here, it's pretty much hitting high. I mean, it might be hitting low too, but the problem is that when you burn it, the mid and base notes completely drop off of the fragrance. So in men's cologne, you have the amber, you have the bergamot, and then you start to have like your mid notes, which might be a little bit on the woody side or vaguely herbal side or aquatic side, and they just kind of morph into this like deep, dark, musky area. So it's basically a men's cologne is basically like musk, bergamot. That's like your skeleton. And then there's amber and other various things that kind of can fill in. And the more notes that you have in between and the more unique that they are will make the difference as to whether or not it's a very like generic kind of men's cologne as opposed to like an intriguing one. Yes? So the problem with this candle is not necessarily that it's too generic. It's the fact that like the mid and the base notes completely go away upon it being burned, like for the most part. And all that you're left with is this screaming bergamot amber the top. So like if you were doing, you know, on your iPhone or whatever else, or if you could still have one of those like fancy old school like vinyl record players, or what do they call them? Like they're I can't even think of what they're called now because I'm such a modern girl. But at any rate, if you have electronic like music equipment, right? And you have the equalizer, it was basically as if you just turned down all the bass and mid notes and then push the treble notes as high as you could possibly go. And that kind of music distortion is what happened with this candle. And it was just so bad. Oh my gosh. And the volume in terms of strength and throw on this candle is like an 8 or an 8.5. Like it's crazy in the open concept, okay? So it's not a shy candle either. But unfortunately, the best parts of it, which is frankly this, I would say it's probably a heavy clove underneath. The fragrance has a little bit of a cola, you know, like a Coca-Cola like smell to it, which because cola usually has elements like brown sugar, vanilla, and clove. That's why some of these masculine colognes with those deep, heavy notes will sometimes come across as cola a little bit to your nose. But obviously when it's mixed with other things like musk and amber, like it's not going to come across as a gourmand cola. But yeah, there's all of those notes. I don't know where they're getting the orchids. I mean, they do say dried, which is like, at least that's reputable because there's nothing here that's fresh or dewy or botanical at all. If there's a floral note here, it's just really like dusty and decaying. A perfume oil as opposed to like a botanical thing. And I'm surprised that they didn't call out the spices because I do think that there's a considerable amount of spice, especially clove, but possibly even some ginger, to be honest. It's real deep, it's real biting, it's very incensey, it's very like leather tobacco adjacent. And then your oak wood is going to go right in with that. And then the amber is just like poured all over it, you know. It's drowning in amber. But man, when you burn it, it's just bergamot. It's just bergamot and amber. And then this like vague after smell of like the spices and everything, but coming in at like a 2 as opposed to an 8. It's just an extremely imbalanced candle when burned. And it's not bassy at all. It's way high treble. And like I said, it's screaming at you in the treble range at an 8 or an 8.5. I'm just really not sure who's going to like this candle. I haven't even looked at the reviews on bathandbodyworks.com yet. I don't know. I mean, it's possible that there will be some masculine leaning folks and maybe some men who like men's colognes like in their house, who won't mind the brassiness of the bergamot and amber with a tiny bit of musk. I mean, it doesn't smell like a woman's perfume or half a woman's perfume. It smells like half of a man's cologne. No question. Ugh. It's just really not good. It's really not good. You have to, when you have like that heavy of a bergamot amber, like you have to balance it out with at least the equivalent in musk, in base notes. Remember, our 2 main notes for a cologne is like the amber bergamot and the musk. And they really have to like pair, right? And you can have shades of emphasis. You can have more of a bassy, less high. I would go that direction. This is exactly the opposite. It's like all high, little bit of bass. It's like one of those swimmer bodies, you know, where it's like all shoulders, tiny, 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 all the way down. Yeah? Like a triangle. Not a balanced candle, and it was an aggressive one. Very aggressive. I would say even if you like men's colognes, like this is a no for me. It's a no for me. and I'm not sure that you're gonna like it. I can't recommend it, but I am curious if you liked it. So if you liked it, please talk to me. Am I missing something here? Was mine just like a dud or something? Ugh, 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 ugh. I hate it. After like 2 or 3 burns, I hate burned it in the guest bathroom. And let me tell you something, I closed the door and still it figured out a way to get out under the crack. You know what I mean? I'd be like in my living room like, why am I smelling that Bridgerton candle? Like, stuff something under the door. Like, I can't. I almost put it outside at a certain point, but then it was kind of weird because I've got like this deck that's like wood, and I know it's ridiculous, but I would feel like I need to be on the deck if I was burning something, because I'm just kind of paranoid about my house going up in flames. Like, I have nightmares about it. But yeah, we did it. We burned it all the way down to the wick clips. Hate burning in the guest bathroom. It really burned like a dream. I mean, toward the end, there was like a little bit of sootiness like right here, but really it burned fantastic. It really did. Lit up every single time. Didn't have puny wicks. Hardly any sooting. Because that's how candles are when you don't like them. They perform like a dream. And this one did. And it even looked nice being lit. Whew, it's bad. It's real bad. So, I do not recommend it. Maybe they were thinking like, because, I mean, it's no secret that like the watcher demographic for Bridgerton is heavily female. And so maybe they were thinking, yeah, it's a men's cologne, but let's just really like punch up the bright notes, the top notes in it, the bergamot, you know, and then, you know, downplay some of the bassier notes, and maybe the women will like it. But it's just made the fragrance completely imbalanced, and like I could hardly smell it. It was just so bad. And it was half a fragrance once it was burned, half a fragrance. Okay, I'm sorry. I really, really, really hate it. And I don't review that many candles that I really hate. And it's partly because I'm not sent PR, so I'm not generally sent candles that I otherwise wouldn't buy. And when I purchase candles in store, I have a pretty good indication that I'm going to like it. So that's part of the reason why like there aren't that many like candles that I review that I hate, that I absolutely hate. So through the filtering process, they don't usually get to this stage. But this one smells radically different being burned than it did the on cold experience, and that it does on the on cold experience. It's a much more balanced fragrance on cold. And even the balanced experience on cold is not necessarily spectacular or innovative or anything like that, but it's at least a reputable fragrance, and it's well within the genre of candles that we've seen, that we will continue to see from Bath & Body Works, that, you know, are fairly successful. And I lean more masculine, and most of those candles leaned feminine in that Bridgerton thing, and I just thought, yeah, sure, why not, you know? Haven't seen that many reviews. Maybe there's a reason for it. Nobody was willing to go on camera and be like, what was this? No one wants to be in this study. Who? This candle would chase everyone out of this study. Truth. All right, I'll link it down below. I have no idea why, but I will link it down below because I link everything down below. Do not buy it. No, not unless you're like a hardcore men's cologne person and you're curious. Kind of the way that when you curiously watch like a movie that you just know is going to be so bad, it's almost good. Yeah? To no one else can I recommend this candle. I'll catch you in the next one.